Great Battles of Alexander, then the Macedonian Art of War, part of the Great Battles of History series by GMT. The Persians have done all their activations for turn 5, and so has Alexander in a slightly strange turn of events. During turn 5, or at least the Persian part of turn 5, this Persian leader here, whose name I'm never going to be able to pronounce, sent a bunch of chariots forward, 3 chariots, ordered them to charge forward here. The companion cavalry was lined up across here with some other stuff in here, and the horses backed away from the chariots as in as orderly a fashion as they could, and some chariots came through here and chewed up a peltast who didn't manage to get out of the way, and it was all a bit unsightly and for the Macedonians, and this section of the Macedonian right flank was split away from the companion cavalry, and there was a great big gap in here, and this guy got a continuation, and Alexander was sufficiently alarmed by the state of his right flank that he made a trumping in roll as a result, and succeeded. Had he failed on that, it would have been catastrophic, because then the Persians would have been able to capitalise on this great big hole in his line, and he'd have been finished, and yeah, all would have been very nasty. As it is, he makes the roll, and he's able to organise his forces, reorganise them, take off cohesion hits, get them to deal with the chariots within their lines, and so on. And he ends up in this position here with his lines back, you know, not in great shape, but pretty much fighting fit, and with the Persians having racked up a few more route points. The units over here that were routing 12 route points worth of units over there were completely, they were driven further away by the attempts of their leader to encourage them to stay on the field. And over here, Bessius had a go at rallying these 3 units that were running away, and one of them routed further and 2 of them rallied. The reason he didn't decide then to throw his heavy cavalry into the fray is because the trumping in by Alexander meant that no one with less than 7 initiative could possibly have any momentum. So, and that applies to his own side as well. Craterus and Parmenion still to activate. You can see the light cavalry over on this flank. The Macedonian left has engaged their lines now, and there's a skirmish going on, and Mazius is trying to sneak the heavy cavalry further round onto the flank where it could really do them some damage. So there are threats appearing all over the place, which the Macedonians must be wary of, and but they're now feeling fairly content to play a waiting game and just let the Persians break themselves upon their structure. They're feeling as if they're pretty good, that they can fight off whatever the Persians can throw at them in terms of troop quality, and that eventually they'll win the battle of routing units. Because if you come down here, you can see that the Macedonian route points are a truly frightening 0 and 0, whereas the Persians are up to 36, 18 points worth of chariots and elephants, and another 18 points worth of light cavalry. Now the army's route on, I think it's about 125 or 150, so there's a fair way to go, but you can see that already the momentum is kind of with the Macedonians, in that they don't have to do anything different than just grind away at whatever comes to fight them, and then rally and reform and do it again. So it's the Persians that need an answer. You know, they're the ones that need the tin opener here, and they don't seem to have it. Darius has bumped this great slab of cavalry forward another few hundred yards to get it within striking distance of the main Macedonian lines, should opportunities present themselves, because he was just a bit too far back take advantage of the opening here, and so he's come forward a little bit in response. So I've got Craterus to do now, and Parmenion. Parmenion's got plenty to think about over here, and of course hasn't got a continuation. He's got a routing unit, he's got some threats from heavy cavalry that he might need to find an answer to. And Craterus has got the phalanx, and the phalanx don't really want to go anywhere, so he may have to shift across and get these skirmishers doing something worthwhile, or at least find something useful to do in the absence of getting the phalanx moving. He might even think about pulling the phalanx back so that they're all in one line, but that looks like quite a tricky well, they are in a line, but in a straight line straight across here, rather than in this slightly strange line that they've got at the moment. But that looks like quite a tricky manoeuvre to pull off, especially when you haven't got continuations to do it with, so he might leave it. So it's the beginning of turn 6 here. At the Battle of Gaugamela, Great Battles of Alexander, part of the Great Battles of History series. And yeah, Alexander has just had his elite leader phase, and he's actually given it to Parmenion, and Parmenion's used it to try and stabilise the position out here on the Macedonian left as much as he can. And partly what he's done is commit some of his heavy cavalry into driving away some of this light cavalry that was here. You can see some routed units up there and some more routed off in the distance. But that's obviously cost him some cohesion on his heavy cavalry, and the Persians have uncommitted heavy cavalry to try and turn the tide to throw into the battle here, and he's not got much left. There's 3 units of heavy cavalry sort of holding the flank here, and frankly not convinced that they're going to win this overall skirmish out here on the Persian right. The Macedonians have rearranged their phalanx, as you can see a little bit here. This guy's still slightly out of position with an exposed flank here, and all kinds of things going a bit wrong for him. But they're aiming to get him into this sort of position here, and then perhaps bring these peltasts up and give the baggage train up and run these up into this kind of area, so that they've got a shape like that which isn't completely reliant on these forces holding the flank, because this is all quite touch and go at the moment. We're coming into the Persian activation phase, and we start off with the 2 initiative guys. So that's this leader in here, and another one way over there who's going to try and get a line command to get something moving. And with 2 initiative, you've got 2 orders, so there's not a huge amount that you can really do, but still he'll try and do something worthwhile. But there's a lot of guys to act before Parmenion gets to go again, so Mazaeus will get to act. This guy up here will get to act there. He made a mistake, potentially a mistake. He ran across here to try and rally some troops, and now he's not in a position to give a line command to this block of lancers here, which any time he gets that line command will be quite threatening, because that whole group could move up into this area and threaten to envelop lots of things up here. But he's not ever getting the line commands. I think he needs a 2 or something, maybe a 3, but he's just had 4 or 5 goes at getting a line commands and hasn't managed it. And the way that the Persians have set up with Darius, trying to provide a threat with this great block of heavy cavalry, means he's not dashing around offering line commands to his various subordinates, so they're having to get by on their own, and not doing a particularly great job of it. If the Persians got lucky with their line commands, they could put the Macedonians under an awful lot more pressure than they are at the moment, but it just hasn't happened for them so far. Anyway, this guy is probably going to run back here ready to be in position to try and get his line command again. What I'm going to do with this commander, not too sure. So let's start with this one actually here then. This is a 2 initiative leader, and he's got a strategy rating of 2, so he can have a line command on a 0, 1 or 2. Let's give him a roll, because if he makes it, he's going to have something interesting to do, and if he doesn't, he's pretty much finished, because he's, you know, oh, there he is, he's got a 0. So he has got a line command. Okay, he's moving some troops. So here's one of those moments in Great Battle of History where the tension has kind of ramped up and we've reached a kind of crunch point where either one side gets an advantage or the other. So Mazaeus here has just launched his heavy cavalry in and routed some Thessalian cavalry. That this leader back here, he moved himself back into the lancers, but he also, while he was doing that, launched a couple of chariots across here at the Thessalian heavy cavalry, and some of it was able to back away from the chariot, but one of the heavy cavalry got pushed this way towards the light cavalry that was screening over here, and then got stuck, and so Mazaeus was able to bring his heavy cavalry round and flank it and rout it. And now he's got a bit of a gap where he can get down onto the flank of this Peltast and possibly get through here, or possibly swing round and engage some of this heavy cavalry that's got hits on it, so he can run through the back of this heavy cavalry and completely destroy it instead of letting the Macedonian leaders rally it. So he's got opportunities, if he could get a continuation, to cause some more problems, and we rolled for the continuation. He got a 4. He's got a 4 initiative, so he's got his continuation, and now the question is what the Macedonians want to do about it. So they've got all their leaders. They've got Parmenion, who's a 5, Crotrus, who's a 5, and Alexander, who's a 7. So the safest option would be to try and trump in with Alexander. But apart from rallying some routing skirmishers who got overrun by cataphracted heavy cavalry, apart from rallying those, he's not got a huge amount to do over here, because Bessus over here, the wing commander, hasn't acted yet, and he'd rather Bessus had acted first so that he can respond to it and take advantage of any weaknesses that Bessus creates in his own lines. He doesn't want to be acting now, because there's really not a lot for him to do. He's not going to go chasing after this cavalry with his infantry. That wouldn't, because it's just going to withdraw away from him. And so there's and he doesn't want to get sucked into committing his cavalry to dealing with sort of piecemeal cavalry and open himself up to a counterattack, which is what Darius is trying to set up. He's trying to goad the Macedonians into sort of having a swing at this cavalry and having a load left to swarm around it and destroy it. So he's not getting sucked into that ploy. So there's not a lot for him to do. On the other hand, if Parmenion tries to trump in and fails, then not only is Mazaeus getting a continuation to cause him problems, but he's not going to get any sort of response. Alexander trumping in, on the other hand, prevents anyone on the Macedonian side from getting momentum, which he doesn't want either. So I'm leaning to the view that Craterus trying to trump in is probably the best option, because if he fails, well, at least Parmenion is still going to get to act later in the turn, and he's not going to stop other things on the Macedonian side from being able to get momentum. He's only going to stop Bessus getting momentum and Marseilles getting momentum, and that's going to be a good thing. So I've talked myself into it. Craterus is going to try and trump in on the Macedonian side, and he hasn't got that much to do really. He just wants to stop this surge by the heavy cavalry over on the Macedonian left. So he has rolled a 4, and that's good news, very good news for the Macedonians. He has trumped in, and Marseilles is stopped in his tracks, and this dangerous looking attack that was developing from the heavy cavalry has just got stopped, and now Parmenion's going to have an opportunity to do something about it. And Marseilles, unfortunately for the Persians, is finished. But that's one of those things that could have swung the other way, because if he'd got another go, he might have routed a couple more units. He would have destroyed this Thessalian cavalry for sure. He might even have been close enough to send these chariots wheeling in here and driving this even further, and then being able to swing round behind this line with his heavy cavalry. There were some nasty opportunities for him there, and now he's not going to get to take them. And this Thessalian cavalry probably escapes, probably gets a rout move, and then gets rallied. So that was quite a big roll for the Macedonians, and that's what the game is about. It's about these pressure situations, building and building until you reach a roll like that, which is actually critical, and you either make it and steady the ship, or don't make it and things start to collapse.
Gaugamela here in Great Battles of Alexander then at the end of turn 6, and you can see in the centre here the phalanxes have withdrawn to a more circumspect kind of position. We've actually got some Greek allies here who could sort of turn around and close this out round here, but they're actually providing a second line in case this heavy cavalry breaks through something here and gets into the rear of the army. So they're actually providing a second line there, but if needed to, they could sort of come round here and add some defence to this flank. But anyway, they've got this kind of horseshoe position now to defend the centre. This flank's looking fairly secure at the moment, and over on this flank things are fairly heavily engaged, but the Macedonians, just through troop quality, superior ability to rally, the Persian inability to rally, and just getting to throw their punches last is just giving them that slight edge. So for example, when Marseilles brought his heavy cavalry around here and routed the Thessalian heavy, which is just down here at the moment, the Macedonians didn't want to try and rally it while it was out in front of their lines, so they let it rout move back here, and they'll try and rally it this order's phase somewhere where it might recover. But yeah, when he moved his heavy cavalry round here to rout that, they were then able to pull round onto this flank and start pushing in here, and you can see some routed cavalry back there. And if Alexander gets another elite activation phase at the beginning of turn 7, then he'll be able to pass that directly off to Parmenion, who will be able to continue to roll up this flank with an elite activation phase, as well as reorder any troops out of zones of control which have got cohesion hits and so on, and sort his forces out. And it's that kind of little tactical edge, plus a bit of extra troop quality, plus more orders and activations, and the ability to get continuations without getting trumped, which is proving decisive here. And you can see up there, this is the casualty pile for the Persians, and this is the casualty pile for the Macedonians. So you can see, you know, they're slowly winning the battle just by grinding through not very good units. You know, this is some chariots and some elephants, and they're 2 points each, but they're slowly getting picked off and slowly running out of steam and getting hit by javelins and archers, and they're gone. And some light cavalry, which, you know, has routed, and the leadership wasn't good enough to rally it, and of course it moves 8, so suddenly it's gone, and then it's off the edge of the map. And so the poor old Persians are up to 60 rout points without really having done much wrong, just tried to engage, and they've got 60 rout points against them to show for it, and they haven't routed a single thing of the
the Macedonians. So the Macedonians don't have lots of troops on the board, but what they do have sticks around. And like I said in an earlier bit of footage, the quality of Alexander and his subordinate commanders is so high. You know, Alexander, the Macedonians had these 3 skirmishers routing, and Alexander just looked across at them and went, "Boys, stop it." And they all went, "Oh, okay then," and turned around, and they've got 1 cohesion hit on that one, 1 on that one, and 2 on that one. So from completely routing, they just sort of stopped in their tracks and turned around and took up the fight again. And that is largely what happens, or seems to happen with this Macedonian army. It was certainly in this battle. It is possible for them to fall apart, but they're not doing it right now. They're stubbornly refusing to fall apart. So end of turn 6. I've done everything I need to, so what I'm going to do is just advance the turn marker to turn 7. Let's just pick that up over here, move that up to turn 7, and then what we're going to do is have an elite activation roll for Alexander, who gets it on a 0 through 7. So there's a 4. So the Macedonians are going to have an elite activation, and Alexander's over here at the moment, doesn't really have a great deal to do. So he is probably going to pass that activation, like I say, off to Parmenion over here, and he can have 5 orders to kick us off at the start of turn 2 before anything happens. And so I think what he's going to do is just remove cohesion hits from anything he can, especially his heavy cavalry, and then try and drive up the flank here and start rolling some more light cavalry up and making life difficult for the Persians over here. He's got some light cavalry back there, but it's not shock capable. It would be lovely to swing that round, but he can't. But he has got some peltasts here who might be able to get round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into the rear of the light cavalry there, and he's got this on the flank. So yeah, the Persian position here is looking pretty grim, unless this heavy cavalry comes back round and helps out. So, as expected, another unit of Persian light cavalry was routed by being attacked in the flank. So he's now trying to make a break for it throughout turn 7, and these skirmishers here finished off a chariot with some missile fire, and that's removed a thorn in the side of this heavy cavalry. There is still a chariot loitering around back over here, which is slightly concerning, but there's not a lot they can do about it apart from sort of sidestep it if it tries to get too frisky. So we're now going into turn 7, starting with the initiative 2 leaders, which will be this guy here and someone off over in the middle here, but I'm going to do turn 7 and 8 on a different video, so wrapping it up here with the Persians now up to 62 route points out of, which sounds to me like it's somewhere around half they're allowed total. Let me just check on here. If we have a look at the deployment and the scenario book, let's have a look. The Persian up here. A Macedonian army withdraws when it's got 150 route points, and the Persians at 175. Okay, so the Persians have got a way to go, but they're on 62, and they haven't made a dent in the Macedonians yet as we come into turn 7.